Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is August the 26th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1441 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2021 on the ancient Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, original, indigenous, ancient, natural, divine, Article 3, Moroccan, Moorishe American Consular Court action. I am Sovereign Living Justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in Capitis Domini Shonolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, in proprio corredes. I want to open the call first by shattering the most toxic and pervasive fairy tale and myth that has ever been told about us, about the Moors. I am going to cast the spell to break the myth now. And when I cast the spell to break the myth, you will know what the myth is, or was, rather. The spell is this. There is no other people on the earth that governs money better than the Moors. That's the spell I'm casting. There's no one who governs money, natural resources, land, commerce. No one does it better than we do. That's the truth. That is the truth. The myth and the fairy tale that we've been told is that, oh, they're terrible with money. They don't know how to manage well, and they're minors and can't do anything for themselves. We taught everybody else how to manage and govern. So I wanted to put that out there first, because that is like the most toxic and pervasive fairy tale that's been out there on the record for a very long time. And even some of us and many of the comedians and those who are speaking publicly were continuing to cast that spell. And yeah, it's cute and funny when the comedians are talking about, people not paying quote unquote bills and all of that stuff. We never had any bill. That's how come we never knew how to pay them. We didn't have any debt. We didn't have any bills. So our ancestors didn't teach our parents, and our parents, some of our parents did teach us that, but most of us didn't get taught that, how to do that every time, and there's a reason for that. They wanted to make it look like we were fresh out of slavery and didn't know anything. No, that's not it. What it was is our parents, our great-grandparents didn't have any bills. Even my grandmother had her domicile paid off, and she was around at the time of the switch in 1933, etc. So I just want to make sure that we break that spell and cast none. We didn't have any taxes and still don't owe none. And we never had any debt whatsoever. And then my grandmother, when she found out, when they were starting to say, oh, you need to help pay because we're in a war. That's what they were saying. And we're in a depression. We're in a war. We need some help. Help your government. Not knowing that that our ancestors were the government. Our grandmothers and grandfathers were the government. And so, and the reason we say that we're going to cast the spell is because of what casts do. Do you remember what casts do? What casts do is cast, how you have a cast on your arm? that's actually the same cast. And casts are used to fix that which is broken. You put a cast on a broken arm or a broken leg, and additionally, when you put a cast in place, everything that comes after it is molded the same way as the cast. And it becomes a perfect match or a copy or a clone or a duplicate or a recreation of the spell that was cast. So that's why we cast spells, so that every word that comes after that word is in alignment with the actual spell that's cast. So secondly, I wanted to say that for the second day in a row, we're hearing that the store shelves at the store are looking scarce and clearing out, and it looks like there's hardly anything on the shelves, etc. Okay, Moors, please don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. And the reason I say don't worry about it is because they are making room for our products to go there. With the change of the money system, okay, yes, with the change of the money system, see, those corporations who controlled the previous money system, those corporations, they controlled not only the money system, but then they said, okay, since they control the Federal Reserve, quote unquote, corporation and all of that, all they did was say, okay, now we're just going to start corporations, other corporations that make the things that go on the shelves, and that way we'll just push the Moors out of commerce. We'll push the Moors out of commerce, and then they can only buy what we tell them to buy using our money. That's what they were saying. That's what the corpses were saying. Okay? And now actually all of the corporations that were supplying both the money, and it wasn't real money, it was just fiat, it was fake in the first place. But most of the corporations that were supplying that stuff have gone out of business. They were bankrupt since 1871. But even up to now, okay, those corporations, they've lost a lot of their ability to push fiat around on our land. That ability has been stripped from them. And with the stripping of that ability, they can't then go to companies or corporations like Kraft and DuPont and Sara Lee and, you know, just go down the aisles in the grocery store and look at the products and name the corporations that supply those products. And the poison food, yes, Justice Theodore. So those corporations are all bankrupt, okay, and that has everything to do with the liens that we've been doing, okay. The liens that we have been putting out there have actually manifested the bankruptcy that's been on the record since 1871. So, and actually, even as far back as 1776, they were bankrupt. We know that. They came here with nothing. So now their supply chains and things like that are, the supply chains are done. They're finished. And so now what's happening is there's room on the shelves for the things that we put on the shelves. Okay? So if there are more, let's say, for example, if you go to Walmart, for example, you go to Walmart and you go to the jewelry section and there's hardly any jewelry there. Well, that's room for the Moors who do jewelry to not only see they're just getting ready so that when we go with them and say this is the Constitution, this is the dollarium, and our money is going to be used to buy products from Moors. Okay? And so then the Moors who make jewelry, they'll be able to put their jewelry there, and those with the dollarium will come in and buy as much jewelry as they want to buy, and it's going to run straight on through that system so that the Moors who are making jewelry can get what they need to continue making jewelry. The Moors who have little small gardens in their yards, okay, the stuff that they have in their yard, they can can it, for example, preserves and, you know, the natural foods and fruits and vegetables and all of that. All of that can be put into the store. There's a little, you know, we start out in one way where the Moors can get their products on the shelf, and then we who come in with dollarium, listen, we can buy the stuff that the Moors have on the shelf, okay? And then while this transition is being made, that change can be taking place. Now, in addition to that, our brothers and sisters from other lands who are here right now, who already have their little stores on the corner and different food stores and small little, you know, and I'll just say African or Mexican or, you know, other stores, they can then proclaim their nationality and who they really are and start filling up the shelves with their stuff too and accepting gold-backed dollarium for their stuff too. That's what this rollout is going to be looking like. Okay. Now, yes, that's, you know what, Justice Frank, you're absolutely correct about that. The products that they put on the shelves, and it's not their shelves, it's our shelves, but the products that they put in the grocery stores are a reflection of who they are. That's why they didn't do a bunch of natural products, because they're not natural. And I'm not putting them down. We love them. We're not here to bash anybody, okay? We don't have to bash them. They are who they are, and we are who we are. And there's no argument about that. So they put on the shelves that which works best for them, okay, and the things that they could produce. And now it's our turn. We need to start producing products, even if it's on a small scale. And I've seen Moors do it, even in their sleep. Yes, Empress Tia, the shelves to be stocked with eclectic cell food, like Dr. C.B. admonished. Yes, absolutely. So the shelves that you see emptying, we can fill them. If you have a product, you can start getting ready to fill those shelves with your product. And the way that looks is this. You know how you'll go to a grocery store and they'll have one aisle for quote-unquote Mexican food and Asian food. And they'll have all these different sauces and different mixes and things that are specific to those cultures. Okay? And right now those are corporate cultures, so that's not really a culture, but it's as close as they can get while we were asleep. So we're not bashing them. It is what it is. And so the shelves now can start being stocked with things that have to do with us. So the empty shelves are a precursor to the changing of the money system. The one who controls the money system controls what goes on the shelves. The modern Europeans know that. Yes, we love all the food that we've been eating in our sleep has been good food. It's been great food. It's been great food. We appreciate the things that our brothers and sisters did while we were in our sleep. But now they're signaling to us that now that you're awake, you're going to have to fill the shelves with things that you need. We need natural foods and products, natural sea salt, natural vegetables, natural fruit, natural fabric, and all of that. And that's our job. That's where we're going. But we couldn't really do that. See, they put blocks in place so that we would not prosper under that old system as a whole. One or two or three here and there prospered, and the rest of us did not. But that system wasn't meant for us all to uplift in it. It wasn't meant for that. That system was to show us how our system should look, but let it be our system outside of that system. So the emptying shelves at the store should not be cause for panic more. It should be stirring up your entrepreneurial juices in your mind, getting those juices flowing, those electrical currents and frequencies flowing, so that you can think of some things that need to go on the shelf, okay? Because in a very short while, we're going to have to fill those shelves, and it actually is now. It's whenever we say it. It's time to do that. But we needed to have our own currency first. And we do have it now. So, like it's been said by our, those that we look to hear from, they said we could have done it on toilet tissue and it's still honorable. It's still money, real money. It still has more value than fiat. Okay, we chose to do it in a way that reflects our nobility a little, better than toilet tissue. And so we did it the way we're doing it now, and that's to be honored by all, including the subject. Okay? So don't let the store shelves make you nervous. Just get ready to think of some things that you would like to see on the shelf. Think of some things that you would like to see out there. Some things that, I was talking to one of our sisters from Kenya who was here. And they are already ready to go with natural foods that are actually specific to us. Okay? There are a lot of plants that were growing here that have been supplanted or substituted for genetically modified ones, but now those are going away and the natural plants are growing again. So we can make our own foods and our own natural healing meals with that. And that actually should be going on the shelf in the grocery store. But the FDA and the USDA, the corpse part of it, okay, not the original FDA and USDA, because the original in red and all lowercase letters, as you know, is us. But that corpse one was put in place to stop all of our stuff, our natural stuff, from coming through. Okay? So that's what that's all about. And I don't want to spend any more time on that, but we're doing everything right. We're doing everything we should be doing. We're just going to keep doing it. Okay? I wanted to, yesterday, during the meeting yesterday, we put forth the document with regard to the Sovereign, Original, Indigenous, Natural, Divine American Bar Association, so that we can prepared to go into the inferior courts. Now, not the corporate courts. We're not going into any corporate courts because we don't go there. That's like walking into a cemetery trying to speak to people and get people to do stuff. We don't do that. We lean that and do a court action on the dead and get them on out of the way. Then what's left is an inferior court of subjects according to the Constitution. And yesterday we put a document under the video with regard to that particular piece. And I want to take just a moment to show you the document so that you can see it and also see what we added to it just since yesterday, because we mentioned yesterday that we were going to add some things to that document. And I'm going to pull it up so that you can see it. Because this document is one that will assist us in helping our brothers and sisters who are detained, okay? Our brothers and sisters who have been detained need our help, but we needed to do it in a way that keeps us in our sovereign status and ensures that we know we're not talking to a corporate court, a corporate fake court, pretending to be a court, okay? We had to know that. We had to know. And now that we know, just one moment, let me make sure we can see the document. Can you see the document on the screen? Okay, okay, good, thank you. Okay. Just one moment. Okay, good, you can see it. So the document is a document that's going to help us not only to assist our brothers and sisters who have been unlawfully detained, but it's also going to make it so that we can take over, and it's not really a takeover because we were never not governing the court system. But it's time that we start speaking into it, into the inferior courts in a manner that our ancestors, in a manner that is competent. Some of the Moors have gone into those corporate courts and they've had some success, which we're so excited about that. We have as well, where, you know, for example, a couple of years back, one of our justices was taken, and one of the consuls on the judiciary went down there and got him out, you know. But he actually got himself out because he knew what he was saying. He spoke his sovereign status, and he was going to stay on his sovereign status. And so they had to set him free. But even in that exchange, I was on the phone talking to the fake sheriff in the territory that they were in, and stating who we really are. And before you know it, our Moor was walking out of there. So, and that was within a 24-hour period. That has happened several times with us. And even though what we did could have been done better, the ancestors honored our energy, okay? They honored our energy. And so we're excited that now we're getting the keys that we need in order to do what we need to do, okay? So the document that's on the screen, this is a sovereign justice lawyer consul, esquire, and king document. And again, the word lawyer is spelled L-A-W-Y-A-H. That is actually the original spelling. And incompetent spelling is L-A-W-Y-E-R. That is incompetent. The competent way to spell and pronounce that is lawyer. That means law God. L-A-W-Y-A-H, because Y-A-H is Yah. That means God. So we are doing a proper rebuttal to all of that just mega fraud. Mega fraud. Okay. Yes, in the chat. Yah equals God and Y-E-R equals hybrid. Yes. We needed to do a competent rebuttal to that whole fake lawyer stuff that the fake Crown Corporation sent onto our land to do the fraud. We needed to do a competent rebuttal to that, and this is that rebuttal. So what we've done is, this is the one that I did for me, the affidavit that I'm doing, that I did for me, that I have assigned my own American Bar Association number in purple according to the Circle 7. The Circle 7 is quoted on this document as well. And we'll go through the document quickly once again so that I can show you the new things that we added to the document since yesterday. But my American Bar Association in purple and all lowercase letters, the Sovereign American Bar Association, which is only the original indigenous heirs, okay? It does not contain any hybrids or anyone who's not the original indigenous heirs. And that number is my sovereign security number, okay? And our sovereign security numbers do not have any dashes or minus signs or anything in them of that nature. Justice Onlinne, yes. He says that is the way they pronounce it in the islands. They say lawyer. That is actually the competent, appropriate, proper way to say that. That's how we said it, because it started with us. That never started with hybrids. They never had an original thought in their lives. All they did was, according to the Circle 7, Chapter 29, is we taught them to emulate us. We taught them to emulate us. Okay? And that's what they do. They emulate us, including, we taught them that, and we'll look at that. We'll look at that. My phone is really ringing. I apologize. We will look at that in this document. I use also my Moorish American Consulate MAC number as the second number on this document. And the reason I did that is because when we go into inferior courts, they're inferior because they are not of the same status as us. So that's why the consulate number is there. Because consuls must be on site. And because we are both consuls and all of these other things, we're sovereign justice, we're sovereign lawyer, sovereign consul, sovereign esquire, and sovereign king. Yes, all of that is we've been that from the very beginning, okay? So when you go to Chapter 7, yesterday we talked about the definition of the word bar. Bar is a noun. And For our intents and purposes, because we are the Phoenicians, it is an Article 3 law court. Therefore, anyone using that term shall be from an Article 3 law court and no other. Corporations are notwithstanding. Additionally, a bar is a bank at earth who has the authority to bind and loose, to affirm or deny, to grant or refuse, to accept or reject, to debt or to make alive at law. Okay? Yes, lawyer. It's always been in the Caribbean region as it was in the beginning. Thank you so much for that, Empress Tia. Yes. So we have Moors from the islands who know that the word lawyer started with us. It means law god. And who are the law gods? It's the Moors, Islam. Thank you for that. Chapter 29 of the Circle 7. Magistrate and subject. This is where the purple comes in at. And this is also telling you about the hybrid, the modern European and why they're here. Okay? And when you're thinking about, as we read through this once again, think about the hybrids that come into the meeting and why they're here. Okay? Verse 2 of chapter 29 tells you why they're here. Okay? So that you know why they're here. Because you can't even get mad at them. You can't even get mad at them despite how they act. They're just being themselves. When we're ourselves, they have to be themselves. So let's read through this. This is from the chapter Magistrate and Subject. We put this on this document for a reason, okay? And you'll see as we read through this. This is a part of our sovereign justice and lawyahs document. It says, "O thou Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Just one moment. Let me make sure. Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay. Okay, good. Good. Great. Okay. So let's read chapter 29 of the Circle 7, Magistrate and Subject. O thou, the favorite of heaven, whom the sons of men, thy equals, have agreed to raise to sovereign power and set as a ruler over themselves. Consider the ends and importance of their trust far more than the dignity and height of thy station. That is the reason why the hybrids are here. They are to raise us, assist in raising us to our sovereign power so that we can rule over them. They're here to test us like we've been saying previously. And the ones that come into the meeting, they're here to test to see if we will war back and forth with them. Okay? And we don't need to do that. There's no reason for that. You don't have to. We are the gods, period. That's not going to change. Okay? So, just one moment. Let me roll down here. Okay, so verse 2. Thou art clothed in purple and seated on a throne. The crown of majesty invests thy temples. The scepter of power is placed in thy hand. But not for thyself were these ensigns given, not meant for thine own, but for the good of thy kingdom. Moors, you have a kingdom. You have an empire. All land, all natural resources, all that, and it's our job to govern it. It's our job to govern it, all of us. Okay? The glory of a king is the welfare of his people. His power and dominion rest on the hearts of his subjects. The mind of a great prince is exalted with the grandeur of his situation. He evolveth high things and searcheth for business worthy of his power. That is a commercial, this is a commercial reading. Chapter 29, Magistrate and Subject, is about commerce and who governs it. Okay? He calleth together the wise men of his kingdom. He consulteth among them with freedom and heareth the opinions of them all. He looketh among his people with discernment. He discovereth the abilities of men and employeth them according to their merits. Verse 6, he employeth them according to their merits. That we have to have our own money to employ anybody. Okay? And that's why we do our documents, we do our affidavits, and we put the lawyer with it, and we give it to the subject that we have groomed so that we can employ them to do our command. That's why they're here. His magistrates are just, his ministers are wise, and the favorite of his bosom deceiveth him not. He smileth on the arts, and they flourish. The sciences improve beneath the culture of his hands. With the learned and ingenious he delighteth himself. He kindleth in their breasts emulation, and the glory of his kingdom is exalted by their labors. Verse 9 is talking about the hybrid, the modern European, our subjects. If the Circle 7 calls them subjects, then that's what they are. That is who they are. Okay? So, it's okay to call them subjects. They take pride in being called subjects. And he kindleth in their breast emulation. Emulation is what we have been saying about them, that they mimic the things that we do. And if we war, they're going to war back. And if we're peaceful, they'll be peaceful. It may take them a little while because it is training, but it happens. It is the ultimate outcome. Okay? That's why we don't war back and forth with words and things like that. No need. Circle 7, chapter 29, verse 10, the spirit of the merchant who extendeth his commerce, the skill of the farmer who enriches his land, the ingenuity of the artist, the improvements of the scholar, all these he honoreth with his favor or rewardeth with his bounty. And when they talk about he in this verse, they're talking about all of us, the saviors. Verse 11, he planteth new colonies. He buildeth strong ships. He openeth rivers for convenience. He formeth harbors for safety. His people abound in riches, and the strength of his kingdom increases. Our people cannot abound in riches if we don't control the money. But fortunately for us, we do. Verse 12, he frameth his statutes with equity and wisdom. That's a court statement. His subjects enjoy the fruits of their labor in security, and their happiness consists of the observance of the law. He foundeth his judgments on the principle of mercy, but in the punishment of offenders he is strict and impartial. So yes, we are merciful in our judgments and justice. We are also strict and impartial when it comes to those who offend. His ears are open to the complaints of his subjects. When the hybrids come in here into this meeting and they start talking, they're complaining. hey, how come this isn't done? How come you're not doing that? I thought you said you were going to do this. What about this? What about that? They're just fulfilling what's in the book. It's right there in the book. So we wait for them to say something productive, and if they don't say anything productive, then we just pull them out. Have to say something productive. It has to be a valid complaint. He restraineth the hands of their oppressors, and he delivers them from their tyranny. Verse 15, his people therefore look up to him as a father with reverence and love. They consider him as the guardian of all they enjoy. Their affection unto him begetteth in his breast a love of the public. The security of their happiness is the object of his care. In verse 15, when it says they look up to him as a father with reverence and love, in a different part of the Quran, it says, one mother hath given them suck, all of us. So mother took care of all of us and the modern Europeans. But our mother birthed us, and then we created them. Okay? And so they look at the sons as their father. That's what the patriarchy is. In the patriarchal age, the hybrid flourished in the patriarchal age, or appeared to flourish in that age. And now, fortunately for the Moors and for all of us, we are back to that which is natural, which is the age of the matriarch, of our mother. And in that time period, we come out from under the appearance of slavery, and we flourish. It's our time. It's our time. And no one governs money and resources and land and commerce better than the Moors. No one does that better than us, especially now. And believe it or not, the hybrids do look at us with reverence and love. I know it doesn't seem like it, but we are the guardians of all they enjoy. And when it says guardian, it actually means the heirs of all that they enjoy. Their affection unto him begetteth in his breast a love of the public. The security of their happiness is the object of his care. No murmurs against him arise in their hearts. The machinations of his enemies endanger not the state. That is so important, Morris. Remember verse 17. If you don't remember anything else, remember that one. The machinations of his enemies endanger not the state. In other words, no matter what anyone does, they cannot endanger us, period. We're not in any danger. We have no enemies. It's only subjects and Moors. And then if there are any corpses that pop up, we just lean them, send them to Guantanamo Bay, period. And then we're left with a subject there. So we're not, according to the Circle 7, we're not. This is what our prophet wrote. So for those who are running around saying, y'all better be careful, ooh, you better be careful, they haven't read. They haven't read the prophet's words. Number 18, his subjects are faithful. Our subjects are faithful and firm in his cause. They stand in his defense as a wall of brass. The army of a tyrant flies before them as chaff before the wind. Security and peace bless the dwelling of his people, and glory and strength encircle his throne forever. That's all about us and the subjects. The justices, that's why all Moors are judges and justices and consuls and lawyahs. And that's what this document is about. We also put in the document, and we showed this yesterday, Isaiah 33:22, which is the basis for the governing structure that we gave them, which is executive, judicial, and legislative. And that is based on Isaiah 33:22, which states that for the Lord gods are our judge, the Lord gods are our lawgiver, the Lord gods are our king. It is they who will save us. And that's the subject talking about the Moors. Okay? So the three branches of government, Isaiah 33:22. Okay? So let's see. The thing that the additional law that we added to this document is Article 3. Article 3 of the Constitution. Let me make just a couple of adjustments here so that there's no, we want to make sure that there's no hybrid warring in the chat. So we're going to just hold for just a moment on that. Okay. So I just want to make sure that we stay on track here. Article 3, the Constitutions for the United States, 1789 and 1791. Now, with regard to Article 3, Moors, have you all seen where we can command some resources for ourselves with this article? Have you seen where we can do that in here? We want to point that out because we're going to be putting that forth as well. Okay. Article 3, Section 1 says, the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Okay? So that talks about the inferior courts that we constructed this document for. And again, we're not giving delarium to corpses. We're not going into corporate courts. We have nothing to do with corporations except send them on their way to Guantanamo Bay. And here's the thing about the difference between a corporate court and an inferior court. They look the same. The same faces are there. It's just that those faces have gone from pretending to occupy an office that they do not occupy. They thought that they were over the Moors. That's why when we would go to these corporate courts and these corporate sheriffs would be there and corporate policy enforcers would be there, they would be manhandling and trying to have some authority over the Moors. But when we lean that corporate covering off of them, it's the same people, but they have a different nature. They have the nature of a subject. And we have to make sure that we keep that front and center in what we're doing. They have the nature of a subject. And we have to ensure that they stay in the space of a subject. That's how this works. A spoken court action will do that. I've seen it firsthand on multiple occasions. That a spoken court action on the spot will put them in their subject status. You raise them from the dead, and then you do a court action on them on the spot. I don't care if it's a grocery store, the side of the road, it doesn't matter. Okay? Or a jail cell. You can do it there too. I did it there. Had to, didn't have a choice, or else I wouldn't be sitting here. So, with regard to the compensation piece, this document is going to go with some delirium to and some stipulations to the Secretary for State. The Secretary for State, a copy will go to the bank, and again, those copies of that command will be accompanied by liens and done as court action. Okay, liens and court actions. We've done that on the banks and the everybody, United States Corporation Company, everyone. And so with those liens done and us going into the inferior court, we do need to be compensated, but we needed to set that up ourselves. That's why it never happened. And that's what the hybrids did. They compensated themselves because they were using their own fake fiat. And so now that we have our own money, we can use our money to compensate ourselves by being the law. And then going in and assisting our brothers and sisters that are locked up. So give it some thought, do some study, always demonstrate at the level of your overstanding, ensure that all of your documents are in red and all lowercase letters, etc. And for those who are not there with the red ink and all lowercase letters, demonstrate at the level of your overstanding. Okay. And then be sure to look in the law and see what the law says about in capital spending, show, minimum, medium, maximum, etc. Okay. And then with regard to the compensation, all I did in doing some research on that, I haven't sent anything in yet. I haven't sent anything to them yet with regard to that specific piece. But all I did was look up and see what a Supreme Court justice made. And when I looked and saw what a Supreme Court justice made, it came out to about 277 sovereign credits per year. 277,000 sovereign credits per year. So I'm going to put that in as and give the delirium and say you put that amount of credits into my sovereign resource account. Let's go to section 2. And again, we've all been doing this work anyway the whole time and haven't been getting any credit in terms of that we know of, We've been getting credited, but it's been with the keys to the kingdom. So it's only fitting that we speak up in that manner, okay? And again, that's something that we have to have our own economy to even do it, our own money to even do it. Section 2, the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution. So even though the cases may be under the Constitution, we are not. So we have to be sure we know that we're not under the Constitution, but we do govern. We can govern by the Constitution and say, okay, we'll look at these cases. And that includes the citizen cases. And the citizens have cases. We have causes. The sovereigns have causes. So when we get into when we do court with regard to other sovereigns, and we're, let's say, working out some commercial venture or some merchant venture, and that happens by court action, then we have causes of action for us. Okay. But then when we're dealing with the subjects, they have cases, suits and cases, because they're traveling. Suitcase. There's no coincidences. I'm telling you none. So it says the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States, and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or the citizens thereof and foreign state citizens or subjects. In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, and those in which a state shall be a party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. In all the other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. Does anyone on the call know the difference between original jurisdiction and appellate jurisdiction? And that's a question that that is important, especially when you're talking about so if you want, go ahead and you can star six.
Islam. Okay, so an appellate is when it's legal, and so you can challenge it. So because it's like color of law, but when it's lawful, it's truth. So there is no appeal. So
welcome to the Negro cult bullshit line.
Just one moment. Go ahead, Every.
So that's the way I understand it. The difference is an appellate court is legal. It's blurry, so you can appeal it. But if it's law and it's truth, there's no appeal. I yield.
That's good. Anyone else? You can start 6. Anyone else? The difference between appellate and original jurisdiction.
Come on, Pauline, we want to see you going to a bank.
He's speaking for himself. I don't want to see you going to no bank.
Huh?
I said he's speaking for himself. I don't want to see you going to no bank.
I am the bank. Who does that? We are all the bank. So that's kind of like let's move on.
Islam, sister, right?
Okay.
Come on, Pauline.
Yes,
what's taking you so fucking long?
Yes, go ahead.
I think that this stir decisive, the cases that that's what I think it is. Appellate, stir decisive cases, situations.
Say that again, Nobility.
Stir decisive. The cases.
Stir decisive.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. All right.
Okay.
Which is this side is law.
Islam. Okay. So.
Why aren't you going to the bank, Frank? We want to see you deposit some.
Let me just one moment.
Come on, Frank. Why don't you?
We're not at war here. Let's move on. All right. So yes. I want to break the word down just a little bit. You know how we have appellation? Okay. Appellate jurisdiction, when you look at it on its face, when you're first looking to determine is this an original jurisdiction case or is this an appellate jurisdiction case? Appellate jurisdiction case is one where the parties may or may not be using their real name. So you know how corporations, there's a corporation and then there's the CEO, and the CEO it comes forth and says, like if it's the CEO of Microsoft or whatever, we'll just use that as an example. then they'll say this is a case between Microsoft and Toys R Us. Well, those corporations really kind of don't have a standing. They can't speak. So there's really actually two beings behind that. Appellate has to do with that as well as what innfestamente and you were saying about the difference. Original jurisdiction is who are the originals, who are always in their proper person, the Moors. So just like innfestamente was saying, one is more focused on quote-unquote legal, and the other is lawful. Original jurisdiction is the lawful jurisdiction for all that has to do with the Moors. And then when you're talking about citizens, you're talking about appellate jurisdiction and subject matter. And subject matter is something that you could appeal that for 20 years, just because of the different perspectives and the different, subject matter is just that. Okay, original jurisdiction is the heirs, which is what it always should have been. Always has been and always will be. Those are just a couple of facets of those two different jurisdictions. But at the heart of those jurisdictions, lawful and legal is at the heart of them. There are other facets to it, okay? There are other facets to it, but for the sake of us and what we do, original and appellate, we have appellations, which is going to automatically put us in original jurisdiction. If you have a name, then that's going to put you probably in appellate jurisdiction if you're going in by a name. That's the difference too. That's another facet of those differences. So something that I wanted to bring out in this, because they're talking about treaties made or which shall be made under their authority. Who has the authority to make treaties? Only us. Only we have the authority to do that. Now, the Service Corporation did some black treaties. We have to put them in red and they become real treaties. When we put them in red in all lowercase letters, they become real treaties, okay? And then this is where consuls and public ministers and ambassadors and admiralty and maritime jurisdictions are mentioned. And the difference between states and citizens. We are the states, and the citizens are the citizens. And I want to point out, too, that where it says here between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, that's kind of a hint that citizens claiming lands under grants of a different state, that means we granted them some land to use, and at the time, it was citizens of the same state that were claiming lands under grants of different states. And then it says, in between a state or the citizens thereof and foreign state citizens or subjects. So all of that has to do with diversity issues. And then the second paragraph says, the trial of all crimes except in cases of impeachment shall be by jury, and such trial shall be held in the state where the said crime shall have been committed. But when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such place or places as the Congress may by law have directed. This has been the problem that we all had the problem that we had was that they were saying that we were committing crimes in a particular state. And we were saying, no, we're not in that state. We are our own state. And that's not even a real state. A corporate state is not a real state. That's the problem we had. We don't have that problem anymore because we have put them in subject status, and we're going to continue to put them in subject status and keep them there so that everyone is in the same state with different statuses. The citizens are not in a different state when they are in subject status, which automatically sets the natural order. Okay. Section 3, treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court. The Congress shall have power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted.
And people who steal other people's homes.
Okay, so you know what? You are absolutely correct about that. People who steal other people's property will go to jail. And if you're a citizen, you don't own any property, so you're squatting anyway. Do you get that? Okay. Now, so when they say something right, I have to give it to them because she was right about that. Stolen property, you will go to jail. So anyone who does not have proper title, and we have proper title because we've all put that on the public record. So anyone who doesn't have proper title, yes, you better listen to her. She said that you will go to jail. That's one of your own telling you that. We didn't even have to say that. So we're glad that they're telling the truth. So we added this to this document. We added Article 3 to the document yesterday. And this document will again be placed under this video as well. Okay. The document says a few other things. We went over those yesterday in yesterday's video dated August the 25th. But we did put this in purple and red because of verse 2 of the Circle 7. The hybrid, the inferior courts view the Moors as their king. Okay? And that's what the purple is for. And that is correct. We are also their creator, their God, their Lord, the law, the government, and on and on and on. The sovereign, the supreme, judge of the earth, etc. All of the things that the bibliophilial text and the constitutions and all say that we are. So now, I want to show you a couple of things really quickly that the modern European has done because they're, they're hinting, but they were also at one point, our prophet said that the only time they'll tell the truth is when they're facing death. That is actually true. So I want to show you just a couple of things that they were doing prior to our awakening that are going to affirm some of the things that we have done. Okay. Let's see. I want to briefly point your attention to this document right here, and I'll put the link to the document in the chat. Let me open the chat back up again. I apologize for having to close it, but we did not want any disturbances in the chat while we're doing what we do, while we're sharing information. from the modern Europeans who come into the meeting and attempt to disturb the meeting. So we have to cut that off too. Here in the chat, let's see. There. I'm going to put the link to this document that's on the screen. Hopefully you can see the document on the screen. Let me make it just a little bit bigger. Can you see the document on the screen?
Yes, Empress.
Okay. So this document is a document done by one of the subjects who goes by the name of Anna von Wright. And I wanted to just point out something in the document here. Article 3 of this document, the timeline of the great fraud and declaration of law. It says here, the article in 1781, so what she's doing, she's given a timeline of events that happened with them, okay? So she says, she points out that in 1754, let's go start at number 1, 1754, 1776, the United Colonies, and that's put in quotes for a reason. The United Colonies take shape as a loose political association and the First and Second Continental Congresses result. We know that a loose political association is not a nation, it's not the land, it is not indigenous, and it's foreign. So they can't really form a Congress, but that's why they use the capital letters, is so that they can add whatever meaning they want to add to the word First and Second Continental Congresses. Okay? But they were indeed a loose political association and a band of et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 1776, the colonies declare independence. Okay, and as you know, you cannot just be running around stateless, because that's really a stateless situation there. Because you can't declare independence if you're not a nation or a government. Someone actually in authority has to do that. But part 3 is the part I wanted you to see. The Articles of Confederation bind states, political subdivisions of the United Colonies, together in a perpetual union, creating a confederation of states to operate in the international jurisdiction of the sea. Okay? When they say political subdivisions, that is a jurisdiction. That's a jurisdiction. It's not a state jurisdiction. It is not a government jurisdiction. It's political, and politics is people getting together to believe the same thing. We believe in this and we believe in that. Okay? And there's a little more to political activities than that, but that is the crux of the matter as we see it today. So when they say political subdivisions operating in the international jurisdiction of the sea, then that is an open admission that they are not on the land. That's an open admission that from the very beginning, they're not the land people. We are. The law of the land and the law for the land is the heirs. Period. And unless they rise and stand on the land, they're floating out there on the sea. That's what lost at sea looks like. That's not us. Yeah. until they get in alignment with the law. So their protection is under us. So again, when they come into the meetings and they do what they do, they're looking for protection. That's why warring back and forth with them is not, because the ones who war back and forth with them, they already know, don't look to that one for protection because they're at war just like we are, don't, you know, that kind of thing. That's their thinking. But whenever they find protection, they will obey and do as commanded. So I wanted to point that out in this document, and then I want to point out one other document. It's a document I think worth reading. It does have a lot of hypothecation in it, as are all of the documents that come from those who are not us. They do have, there's a lot of hypothecation in there. So if you're not as well versed at knowing hypothecation when you see it, don't read the document. But if you can filter through all the color of law and color of authority in the document, and you can read it and glean from it, then by all means do so. And again, we can't tell sovereigns what to do, we just make suggestions. There's one other document that I wanted us to take a look at. Let's see. Briefly. And that document, and I'll put the link to the document in the chat. So that you can have some. But this is actually not a bad document at all either. It's a good document. It's got some hypothecation in it as well, as usual. But let's just take a look at it for general purposes. There's a couple of things on the document that I want to show you. This document is a public notice document, and I'll make it bigger so that you can see it. This document is also done by the subject, Anna Von Wright. She did a document here called Civil Orders. Just one moment, let me bring it back up. On July 4th, it's dated July 4th, 2014. Here. There is a specific part of this document that I wanted to point out to you. Let me just see. And the part that I wanted to point out to you is right here. This is like the last few words in the document. And the only reason I'm pointing this out, Morris, is just so that you know that they have always known, and that what we're doing is absolutely the right thing, but they were not going to tell us, and we had to actually see for ourselves. Just one moment. Let me put it back up on the screen. That they have always known, and that we can look at these documents and pull some information from them if we choose to do that. Let's get that off the screen.
Islam.
Empress.
So it says that the letter killeth, but the spirit maketh alive. So if
I can't hear you. Speak up just a little bit.
Oh, sorry. It says that the letter killeth, but the spirit maketh alive. So if we would have been told, we would have never connected with our ancestors and became spiritual. We would just been doing things by the letter. And so, and I think that's where they couldn't tell us, because they can't connect us back to our ancestors, you know, just with words. So I think that's why they didn't say anything. And they need to see that we're connected with our ancestors again to know that we are in our lawful status and we are living sovereignly. I yield.
That is so beautiful. It really is, because had they told us, we would not have gone within and started looking to our ancestral energies to assist us. We would have been looking outside of ourselves for all the answers, and we would have been looking at them for all the answers, and they would have given us more of the same of what they've been giving us. And then we'd have stayed in,
Yeah, because they're limited. We're not. So they would have given us the same because they're limited. So, and we're higher.
Yes.
So
yes.
We needed this. I yield.
That is beautiful, because we had to go within to get these answers, because they were not coming any other way. And we had to be sincere about everything that we do, or the ancestors were not going. If we came with a bunch of ego, the ancestors were not going to give us any answers until they purge and clean that out of us and all of that. Oh, wow. That is so true. I'm glad they couldn't tell us. They can only say it after we say it. Only after. Now remember, more as I've been saying, that we are the value, we're the bank, and that it's only us that is the value and no one else. I've been saying that, but now we're going to see them say it. So here in this document that's on the screen, let me make sure it's up there. It says, oh goodness, there it goes again. This one, let me go right back to that. Okay. It says, we note that the current circumstance being the way things are right now, we note, it's a little blurry, we note that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts. Just one moment. Let me see, maybe I can get it on here a little clearer here. It will be clearer on this page, but it's just one moment. Okay. It says, we note that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattels backing U.S. government debt in the wake of the Civil War. I could stop there. Commercial enslavement means our ancestors were not put in any chains at all and said, go bust up the Shifero. The enslavement happened first. See, that might have happened. But the enslavement happened first commercially. What does that mean? That means that somewhere in, and we know all law is commerce, and all commerce is law. And that means they had to change the literature and the documents first commercially. We had to actually consent to being in capital letters and black ink. We were trying to get into commerce with them as if they owned anything. That's where that came from. Commercial enslavement. That's us trying to get a benefit in black ink and capital letters, trying to get some fiat going here and there, here and there, here and there. That's what commercial enslavement is. Fiat. It's commercial enslavement. The contracts have to accompany the fiat. The contracts accompanying matched with the fiat makes it enslavement, commercial enslavement. The Trail of Tears was not really what they said it was. All that was is the hybrids going around getting us to agree to contracts. As soon as we sign, they say, all right, we got them. Now, policy enforcers, go get them. Get them off that land. Get them out those domiciles. Get them out of there. Move them. Get them off the land. It ain't theirs no more because we have commercially enslaved them, which they consented to by signing these contracts and agreeing to take our fiat. Period. So, yes, it calls it criminal acts, okay? But it was only us, and we know we're not African Americans, we know that. But for the sake of them writing in the best way they know how, they have to use terms that they can comprehend. It wasn't them. And civil war, when you're in civil war, okay, the word civil means everybody's sitting at the table, nobody's pulling out guns yet. It's very civil and civilized. And they got the contract, and they're saying, here, sign this, and we'll let you out of jail. And you sign it, that's war. That's war. Civil war. Everyone is civilized. There you go. Have a great day. We're glad that you signed this contract. Now you can walk out of here. And some will say free, but it's not free because they hold on to you. That's a sticky contract. It's a contract of adhesion, and they got you, and then the fiat starts flying. That's why it's called commercial enslavement, because there has to be fiat with it. No contract that is ever signed comes without some fiat being exchanged. Not one. Not one. So now what happens? Well, now we have our own real money. So we get to put some stuff out there. We get to put some writings out there, some affidavits out there, and determine how our commerce will go. But they're telling the truth now. They're telling the truth. And this is not even the part of this document that I really wanted to show you. I wanted to show you this so that you'll know that it's really about the Moors. It's been about the Moors from day one. Been about us from day one. But the part of this document that I also wanted to show you is her autograph. It's actually a signature. It is in all lowercase letters with a white red thumbprint. Now the ink is not red on the autograph. The ink is not red, but the bright red thumbprint is. And it's in all lowercase letters. That is actually the only way that anyone can speak to a military, a sheriff, or whatever, is if the autograph is in its proper status. Now, she was speaking to corpses. She's speaking of things that we done leaned and moved out of the way. But I still wanted to show you this because at the beginning of this document, it's civil orders that she put issued to all members of the domestic police forces, U.S. Marshal Service, the Provost Marshal, members of the American Bar Association, and the American Armed Services. Again, all in black ink with capital letters flying everywhere. Okay? The only way that Moors, the things that we've been doing are absolutely correct. Okay? And she did put a minus sign in her signature. It has a minus sign in it, which, again, we don't do any of that. And if you'll look here, it says Anna Maria and a bunch of other names, private attorney in service to His Holiness Pope Francis, etc. And she even puts here under C. Under C. So anytime you're speaking to provost marshals, sheriffs, it is the same one. They copied it. She was the attorney for, supposedly the attorney for the Pope. And is supposedly or allegedly a distant cousin of Pope Francis. Allegedly. I don't know how true that is. To me, they're all related because they all came from the same place. Just like we all came from the same place. The same sovereign stargate. We came from the same sovereign stargate. So, I said all of that to say this. The all lowercase letters thing, the hybrids have already have known about that from day one. They did this in 2014. They've always known about it. We just didn't know, and they were not going to tell us. We actually had to get that from our ancestors first, and then we could see along the way where they got it from. Yes, Justice Giramore says in the chat, many of the battles that were fought between the Pale Albions and the Dodo Blacks. Yes, the blacks, not us, but the blacks. Yes, absolutely. And now, let me see. I believe there's one last document that I wanted to show you. Yes. One last document that I wanted to show you. It would have been helpful to see this beforehand, but again, I'm glad our ancestors had it so that we had to listen to what they said. Okay, we had to hear from them. Here is the link to the document that I am about to show you lastly today, just so that you can see. And now we are actually able to see that we actually had to hear from the ancestors on all that we're doing. We had to. Because even if we had seen this beforehand, we don't know how true it is unless the ancestors tell us how true it is and that it works for us. And notice carefully the date of this document. It is dated April 21st, 2015, which was before we woke up and before the majority of us woke up. I want to focus first here. Your thumbprint is your seal, and a self-canceled $1 U.S. postage stamp creates a $100,000 public bond for your office when affixed to the upper right-hand corner of the first page with your name in all small letters written across the stamp in red and dated. again, that's 2015. That's before we woke up and before we knew anything about any of this. And my first time seeing this document was either yesterday or today. I've been seeing so much in the last 24 hours, it's just unbelievable. But she's saying do things in red and all lowercase letters. And then it says here, when executing public documents of the land jurisdiction, all seals, signs, and signatures are done in red ink. When operating in the jurisdiction of the sea, everything is in blue ink. When operating in canon law, your seals and signatures are in gold ink. Oh, didn't know that until the ancestors told us, what, a year and a half ago? And then we know about purple because purple, we just read that in the Circle 7. And that's why we're using purple and red on our document that we're doing. Now, this was in 2015, and as far as I know, none of the Moors were writing in red and all lowercase letters at that time. So they used that at that time, but they can't use it now. They can't use it now. And Empress Ali says in the chat, she says, and we use 2-cent stamps, not $1 stamps. I started out using 2-cent stamps, but then the ancestor said, look closely at the 2-cent stamp, and you will see some capital letters on it that say USA on the 2-cent stamp. So I just stopped using it and started putting my right red thumbprint up at the upper right corner of the document, the first page of the document, and then signing going up at an angle, a 45-degree angle going up instead of, you know, they used to say sign down at a 45-degree angle. Well, that was when we were descending. Now that we are ascending, I just go up at a 45-degree angle and then date it in red and all lowercase letters. But she's telling you here, when executing public documents on the land jurisdiction, because see, the red in all lowercase letters, all of that, that's land jurisdiction. And we're the only ones on the land jurisdiction. That's why we said the subjects do things in blue. And after this, they started doing things in blue. You know, after we woke up and said, wait a minute, we read in all lowercase letters, hold on. You know, so we're not making this up. We're not guessing. The ancestors gave us the information. First, Justice Yajirel, you said it again. I'm telling you, the ancestors give us the test first, and then they give us the lesson and the answers and why they told us to do this and how to do it and all of that. When they first told us about, you know, any of the things that we're doing, they would say, okay, do this based on what you've read so far and what you know about you and about your sovereign status and what you see. That's why our prophet says, if he can just get us to think, we'll free ourselves. All we have to do is thinking is a process that we go within to do. When you're thinking, you don't go all outside and be looking all outside and asking people, you know, you think for yourself, from within yourself.
Islam?
So, Islam nobility.
If you notice, when executing public documents of the land jurisdiction, all seals, signs, and signatures are done in red. When operating in the jurisdiction of the sea, everything is in blue ink. And when operating in canon law, your seals and signatures are in what? Gold. Where else do you see that? The gold fringe on the banner of Amity and Commerce. That tells you that they are both, that's civil war. You're using the gold fringe, which tells you that you're under martial law. Islam.
Yes, Islam. Some people have to hear it from hybrids, some people have to hear it from them. But at some point, we actually have to learn to trust what we hear from within us first. I mean, we've had to do that because nobody gave us the book. We actually had to go to the ancestors within us and say, we're hearing from you. And when you tell us to do something, we're just going to trust and do it. Based on our study and what we've seen thus far, and we're just going to go for it. So with that being said, are there any other questions or comments or anything of that nature? You have the links to these documents in the chat. So, Islam nobility.
I just want to make a comment that I've read these documents back when she put them out, and it's a good demonstration for me of knowing how to read and knowing, not knowing how to read. At that particular time, I wasn't even sure what, my status was, as far as using, the red ink and the gold and all of that sort of thing. But when in capitis diminutio came, to us, now I realize it was never a struggle for me to accept that that was truth, because I had gone through all of this stuff with her, because she's been telling everyone all through the years, and I didn't have any idea that it applied, to us. I didn't know I was a Moor, and but it's come back around full circle, and it's pretty amusing to witness that. Now I know why it was easy for me to accept the in capitis diminutio. So anyway, I just want to make that comment. Islam, I yield.
Yes, yes. She didn't call it in capitis diminutio nolo. She didn't call it that. She didn't call it that. We called it that. But she knew it was right. She knew that it wasn't in capitis diminutio minima, because she didn't say put the first letter capital. She didn't say that. And that's why we called it in capital. We said we got to take it a step further than Black's Law Dictionary. We got to take it a step further than that. We had to. But I knew that only we could do that and give it a name and make it the law. They'd known it, but they were not going to tell us and have us get it with any real understanding. I've never seen these documents until the last 2 days. This one in particular, the last 2 days. And she wasn't going to call it in capitis diminutio nolo. And that was a fight for some of the Moors, too, when we first introduced this, is they were saying, well, I see in capitis diminutio minimum, medium, and maximum, but I don't see in capitis diminutio nolo. Well, Black's Law Dictionary wasn't going to tell you that because the writers aren't sovereign. We are. Islam, Empress.
I was just going to notice we don't staple or punch or tie our paperwork.
Right. Right. Like, yeah, we don't staple or see. That's why I say you have to have a trained eye when you're reading these documents, and that's why we don't put them up very often. Documents by the modern European, we don't normally put those up because you actually have to know what you're looking at to know that we don't go through this document and do everything they say. You know, we have to know for ourselves. And that information we get from our ancestors and from our studies. In this document, she didn't mention in capitis diminution nolo, but that's what it is. That's what she's talking about right there. And Black's Law was not going to tell us. They couldn't tell us. That's something we had to know in our spirit. Are there any other questions? Yes, Justice Gilmore, they could not tell us on penalty of life and fortunes and penalty of their lives. Yes, they were under oath not to tell us this stuff. And even the Moors who saw it, it didn't register because it wasn't time for it to register. There are things about us, the things that matter the most are only going to come to us from our ancestors. We're not going to get them from anywhere but the ancestors. And that's why our energy is so important. Because I've met and spoken with Moors who come into this with a lot of book knowledge, and they can take in a lot of reading and book information, but they're taking it in at the letter of the law and not the spirit of it too. And that is where sometimes they got into trouble, is they thought, well, it says that, so that's what it must be. You got to get some things, you got to get that from the ancestors, and the ancestors are going to tell each one of us what they want us to know about how to do our demonstrations. Yes, Justice Gilmore says we do have to know how to read the records from within. Yes, and each one of us has a specific Akashic record within us that was given only to us for such a time as this. Okay? And no one else can tell you what's on that record. No one else can tell you what's on that record. That's why we don't tell Moors what to do, because we don't know what's on their Akashic record. We don't know what the specific job and responsibility and tasks that their ancestors sent them here for, specifically. We don't know what that is, so we can't tell anyone else, if you do it this way or do it that way, blah, 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 blah. We can make suggestions, but then some things are going to be generalized for all of us, like nationality. Nationality, we got to do it. It's the order of the day. Yes, Justice Yezreel, that's what unity is all about. That is why we are to unify, so that all of those Akashic records can come together and form the whole. And that's what actually is happening now. Okay? That's what happens now. We are on the land. They have always known it, and now we know it. And they can't come on the land. See, what starts in fraud stays in fraud. What started on the sea with them stays on the sea with them until we say otherwise. We started on the land. We created the land, and then we stood on it. What starts on the land stays on the land. Period. So let's get this. It's a wrap. We got it already. Let's keep going. I just wanted to show you share a few of the things that I've seen over the last couple of days through our study, and we have some other banking things that we want to show at the next call. We want to show how all of the derivatives were made and how much they were able to take one of our contracts and make an infinite number of derivatives from it. So we enriched them with just one signature, and even in our sleep we did, with just one signature. It is amazing that they could create 1 trillion derivatives from one contract. That's why we had to terminate all contracts and not just some. We had to terminate all of them. when you find out how wealthy we are just from just one autograph, just giving them $1, $1, they can create so much reserve with that $1 so that they can do what we need them to do. That is unbelievable, because that's what they do with $1. When they take it to the bank, they take it to the bank, and the bank is in subject status. And what happens? The bank takes the $1, issues the credit so that they can fulfill whatever it is we told them to do. And then the bank takes the $1 and says, okay, we don't need capital in capital letters. In other words, we don't need contracts from the Moors, the sleeping Moors, in order to have some reserves in the bank. We can just take this $1 and use it as reserve in the bank. That way we don't have to, we can't enslave the Moors because they've already put up the capital and the reserves with the $1. Therefore, the bank must follow the Constitution and not enslave. And they are not citizens either. See, the $1 is going to make it so that they have to acknowledge that we're not citizens. Just by acceptance of it, just by us putting it on the counter and walking out, that means we're not citizens and they can't treat us like citizens. With that being said, are there any other questions or comments? I'm so excited for us, y'all. I really am, because we're here. We got this. It's a wrap. Islam. Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Peace and
Grand rising, heirs.
Peace, grand rising.
Grand rising.
Long live the empire.
Grand rising. Thank you, Sister Lake, for pointing that out. Thank you.
Grand rising.
Long live the empire. Gave us proof.
Islam.